Am I introducing Ben? Very good evening to you and welcome to KTN Prime. We're coming to you live from West Pokot County. I'm currently in the Kapenguria Museum and some history for you. This is where 6 of the most influential leaders in Kenya's independence struggle were detained. But that is a story for another day. Today we're broadcasting live from Kapenguria in a culmination of a week-long special series we'll be bringing you here on KTN News that has been dubbed Stubborn Taboo. Dorcas Wangira has been on top of that story for us, focusing on female genital mutilation. And that is a practice that continues in such parts of the country, such as here in West Pokot. It is not only intrusive, it is destructive. It is also deadly in some cases and also illegal here in Kenya. And so in our interactive segment today, as later on we'll be discussing in our interview segment in Big Q, we are asking you, do you think communities that still practice female genital mutilation are doing enough to bring it to an end? Do you think communities such as those here in West Pokot that still practice FGM are doing enough to bring it to an end? Talk to us. You can tweet us at KTN Kenya, at KTN News. You can tweet me directly at Sophia Wanuna or send in a message at 22155. Let me take you back to my colleague Ben Kitili, who's standing by for us at our Mombasa Road studios with the top stories. Ben, good evening.
Good evening, Sophia. Indeed, we are getting you live and clear from the county of West Pokot. Indeed, we have a lot for you also from here at the KTN News Center in the capital, Nairobi. But first, the top stories tonight.
It is unfortunate that the audit system in this country produces results after 1 or 2 years, actually 3 years in most cases, when expenditure has already been done.
Governors furious with national government over corruption at health ministry.
The issue that's missing in the fight against corruption in this country is the political will necessary to deal with it directly and in a manner that people feel confident.
The eating continues. But is the Jubilee government worse than previous ones?
Kufikiria wataharibu sifa ya mheshimiwa naibu ya rais ati kupitia mtu anaitwa Boniface Mwangi. We know you, wale mko nyuma ya Boniface Mwangi.
The undercurrents inside Jubilee. William Rutos' allies read malicious scheme to scuttle 2022 deal. And police corner 4 Kiambu kidnappers. Rescue child after 13 days of agony.
All right, let's get to our top story tonight. And Kenyans will have to wait longer for answers over the audit report indicating that 5 billion shillings was misused at the Ministry of Health. The Principal Secretary for Health, that is Dr. Nicholas Muraguri, did not appear before the Senate Health Committee, even as governors reacted with anger to the news of alleged corruption at the ministry. Here's KTN's Timothy Otieno with that report for us.
The much-awaited questioning of health ministry officials by the Senate Health Committee in the lost 5 billion shillings failed to take place. Health Ministry Permanent Secretary Dr. Nicholas Muraguri did not honor summons, having been held up in a crisis meeting at the ministry over the latest scam. The officials are now scheduled to be questioned on Tuesday next week.
It is unfortunate that the audit system in this country produces results after 1 or 2 years, actually 3 years in most cases, when expenditure has already been done.
This is a signal. It is an indication that service delivery ministries, things are not happening in the right way.
Meanwhile, the National Assembly's Public Accounts Committee and the Public Investments Committee will also begin interrogating the suspected 5 billion shilling theft following revelations showing that the money may have been misappropriated through payments on projects not approved in the ministry's supplementary budget. And even though the cabinet secretary to the ministry insists that the audit is yet to be concluded, the Council of Governors is furious and breathing fire. They are shocked to hear that 5 billion shillings could be misappropriated by the national health officials, whereas they have been at war with governors over the little money supposed to be spent to counties for health functions.
We are calling for thorough investigations to confirm those reports, and we are asking for swift action to be taken on whoever involved.
But these are things that we believe must be investigated in detail to ensure that we do not fail Kenyans.
This is not politics. The truth is that the corruption that we see is because of concentration and centralization of resources. If you see the corruption in NYS, it is because we increased the budget of NYS from just a mere 3 billion to about 22 billion in 1 year.
The 5 billion shillings believed to have been lost through a well-orchestrated manipulation of the government's integrated financial management system. Budget experts have confirmed that the 5 billion shillings could finance the government's fight against HIV/AIDS for 3 consecutive financial years. Timothy Otieno, KTN News.
So how much money are we talking about here? What exactly can 5 billion shillings do? Well, if it is true that indeed officials at the Ministry of Health have somehow stolen this amount of money from Kenyans, it means that they have stolen an amount that could have helped the Kenyatta National Hospital give free dialysis services, listen to this, to 35 Kenyans every day for 78 years. That's not all. If the officials are hiding the money somewhere, waiting to spend it after the case is forgotten, it means that they can be spending 500,000 shillings, that's 500,000 shillings every day for the next 27 years, living better lives than some of the royal families in the oil-producing countries in the Middle East. Well, KTN's Ben Kitili now paints a clearer picture for us on what 5 billion shillings really can do.
Indeed, Sophia, when these corruption scandals happen here in the country, not many Kenyans, a lot of numbers are splashed onto your TV screens and across newspaper headlines, but not many Kenyans take a moment to think just how much are we talking about? Do we understand what these figures are? And this is real money. For example, the latest one at Afya House, it is an interim audit report, but it is 5 billion Kenya shillings. Just what is 5 billion Kenya shillings? Those are 9 zeros. Let's take a look at what it can do now. When we take a look at the health ministry, where this has been drawn from, the 2015-2016 budget, the money that was released from the Treasury to the Ministry of Health was 23.5 billion shillings. That is almost a quarter of 5 billion is almost a quarter of that amount. It is 21% of the 23.5 billion Kenya shillings. That means the money that has been lost can run the health ministry for around 3 months in a whole financial year. Now, let's take a look at another thing that has troubled many Kenyans who have kidney problems, and that is dialysis. Dialysis cost at the Kenyatta National Hospital, the biggest referral hospital in the country, dialysis costs around 5,000 Kenya shillings. It can happen, a patient can have 3 to 4 dialysis sessions per week. That is 20,000 shillings. But just taking a look at one day at the Kenyatta National Hospital, which carries about 35 dialysis sessions every day. It handles 35 people for dialysis daily. That brings us to a total of 175,000 Kenya shillings that Kenyatta National Hospital gets from dialysis. Now, if you are to take the 5 billion Kenya shillings and give it to the Kenyatta National Hospital and tell them to use it for dialysis to help Kenyans with dialysis alone, that means 5 billion can pay for all dialysis at the Kenyatta National Hospital for a total of 28,571 days. That is 78 years. That is how much 5 billion Kenya shillings can do at the Kenyatta National Hospital. It can take care of all dialysis for 78 years. Now, let's take a look at the evolution, the county governments. Nairobi County has been, the budget estimates for the 2016-2017 financial year is 15.3 billion shillings. For Lamu County is the lowest with 2.5 billion shillings. This money, 5 billion Kenya shillings, can take care of all of Nairobi's problems for 4 months. And it can run Lamu County for 2 years, 5 billion Kenya shillings. That is how much 5 billion Kenya shillings can do. And something else that Sophia did mention is if you were to spend half a million Kenya shillings, that is 500,000 every single day, it would take you 27 years to exhaust all that money. That is how much 5 billion is. Back to you, Sophia.
Thank you, Ben, for putting that story into perspective for us. In other news, a former anti-corruption Caesar, that's John Githongo, has faulted President Uhuru Kenyatta's approach in fighting corruption, saying those under him are fighting, or rather finding it too easy to get away with graft. Our James Smart spoke exclusively to Githongo about the current corruption crisis.
Corruption is a serious issue. And I think one of the most unfortunate things about this summit is that it's become about who was invited, who went, who didn't go, and not serious corruption-related issues that Kenya faces. The way the event was carried out, from the little that I saw on TV, I don't think my presence there would have added anything except to the melodrama, the theater. We've been writing laws, creating anti-corruption agencies, holding workshops, summits, working groups, creating frameworks, anti-corruption task forces for about 20 years now. We've done it all. The AG himself has just come back from China, where he went to learn about how to fight corruption. So, that is not the issue. We're now in the political phase. The issue that's missing in the fight against corruption in this country is the political will necessary to deal with it directly and in a manner that people feel confident. The president is frustrated. He has a right to be frustrated because alone he cannot do it. He needs the Kenyan people behind him. People are not behind him because they don't believe him. So he's got to get them to believe him. And for a while, I saw it myself, when President Kibaki came to power, people believed him. And so you had the Kenyans around here arresting policemen for soliciting bribes. But you can't digitize integrity. If there's a thief running infamy, it's a better thing for stealing. Same thing with elections. You put BVR, come and Mukora and operate, better for stealing elections. How come countries that are much smaller than ours have been able to do much more in the fight against corruption with laws that are far less detailed than ours, with institutions that are far less, have got, in terms of resources, have got a fraction of the resources that we have. In terms of just the human capacity, have a fraction of the human capacity that we have. So for me, I saw the summit as the end of the era of policy reform approach to fighting corruption. We have finished that one. We've done enough workshops, summits, etc., etc. It's now time to inject some real political will that Kenyans can believe in, for them to give life to these institutions.
And former Gatanga Member of Parliament Peter Kenneth's plan to join the Jubilee Party and shelve his presidential ambition come 2017 has caused fears among Deputy President William Ruto's allies. Now, according to Ruto's allies, led by Uasin Gishu Governor, that is Jackson Mandago, this is a well-orchestrated scheme by some leaders from Mount Kenya region to frustrate William Ruto's presidential ambition come 2022. Now, the leaders, mostly drawn from the Rift Valley region, also claim that the activist Boniface Mwangi is being used by Ruto's enemies to water down the deputy president's credibility.
Less than a week after former Gatanga MP Peter Kenneth shelved his presidential ambitions in next year's general elections in favor of the incumbent President Uhuru Kenyatta, anxiety has already gripped Deputy President William Ruto's allies. Ruto's allies, mostly drawn from the Rift Valley region, argue that the move by Peter Kenneth is only meant to create a stumbling block for Ruto to ascend to power come 2022.
Tumeona mipango zingine hapa ati usisimame Murang'a sijui karibia hapa Nairobi ndio ikifika 22. I'm telling you my friends, dawa ya deni ni kulipa.
Amelemewa mwaka 7, amemaliza kesi ya Hague juzi. Hatuwezi kubali pia kuchafuliwa jina eti after 2017 waseme yeye ako corrupt. Tunajua hiyo mipango na tunataka tuambie wenye wanapanga, kuna wengine wako kwa serikali tutasema vizuri, wanajaribu kupangia pale mbele ili kufika hapo awe mchafu.
According to the politicians, the KNC leaders' surprise endorsement of President Uhuru Kenyatta's re-election is only meant to spoil Jubilee Party's arithmetic plan to rule for 20 years by denying Ruto the smooth inheritance of the key central Kenya support base.
We cannot accept a few politicians, a few members of parliament, and we know you by your names, ati munaenda kuketi usiku na kupanga mkishirikiana na wakora wengine hapo ndani. My friend, hii kura ya 2022 mutapigia William Ruto jinsi tumepiga 2013 na 2017.
The former Gatanga MP, who came a distant fourth in the 2013 presidential polls, is among the most experienced politicians from the Mount Kenya region and has been touted as the person to inherit the mantle from President Uhuru Kenyatta as the Mount Kenya political kingpin.
Politics, being in politics for a day is a very, very big thing. I think it would be, in my view, be wrong to start assuming 2022 or to start thinking of 2022 in 2016.
The Rift Valley politicians now claim that the tiff between activist Boniface Mwangi and the deputy president may actually be part of a larger scheme to discredit William Ruto and water down his chances.
We know you, wale mko nyuma ya Boniface Mwangi, ati mnataka kufanya ukarabati to smear the name of the deputy president, ati ndio ingefika 2022 mwanze kutupatia Kiswahili.
Boniface Mwangi anajaribu kusema deputy president aliua, aliiba, alifanya namna hii, alifanya ile. Mimi nataka niambie Boniface Mwangi, hiyo maneno tunajua sio yako, tunajua wenyewe na tunataka tutafuta hao wenyewe ni wakina nani, na very soon tutasema hawa ni akina nani.
Controversial Kiambu Governor William Kabogo and nominated Senator Paul Njoroge were the first to speak publicly about an issue that politicians from Mount Kenya region generally prefer to talk about only in hushed tones.
Who lied to you that there is ever automacy in politics? You are lying to your friend. If you tell me you will automatically support me regardless of what I do, I'll be lying to you.
Kenneth is yet to decide on whether he will be contesting for the gubernatorial position in Murang'a or Nairobi County. His political game plan is seen to be reminiscent of Uhuru's own 2017 strategy, in which he backed then-President Mwai Kibaki's second term, despite being the official opposition leader. He would later seamlessly inherit the massive Mount Kenya vote block that propelled him to power in 2013.
If we make a promise, if we make an agreement, that agreement must live to its fruition.
A number of Jubilee politicians are positioning themselves in the Uhuru succession battle. Devolution CS Mwangi Kiunjuri, Kiambu Governor William Kabogo, and Kigumo MP Jamle Kamau are already angling to be Ruto's running mate in 2022. Chris Dairu, KTN News.
Police officers drawn from CID, Flying Squad and Special Crime Prevention Unit last evening rescued a 9-year-old boy who had been kidnapped in Kiambu. All the 4 kidnappers were arrested, with one nursing gunshot wounds. Here's Michelle Ngela with more details.
It is the joy of the family and friends of James Mwiruri, whose son had been missing for 2 weeks. For the past 13 days, this house in Kisii Estate in Thika has been home to 9-year-old Evanson Kiguru Mwiruri, but not of his own volition. On his way to school 2 weeks ago, Evanson, a Class 3 boy at St. Veronica Elite School in Murang'a County, was kidnapped by 4 men who forced him into their vehicle and sped away.
Tukapita njia ya msitu tukaenda huko Kisii. Sasa akaniambia tukifika huko nisipige nduru ataniua.
Wakati mtoto alikamatwa, mwalimu aliona mtoto akibekwa kwa gari. Akapiga duru. Kupiga duru gari ikapotea. Mwalimu hakuona namba zote za number plate. Aliona number plate ya KTN.
The kidnappers proceeded to ask for 50 million shillings worth of ransom from Evanson's parents as they kept him locked up in this house in Kisii Estate.
Tukakaa akaniambia ati kuna mtu anaitwa Karo ati tuende tumuone. Sasa tukafika nikauliza ako wapi, akasema ati babake alituma pesa ati akaachiliwa.
Walikuwa wananiitisha 50 million. Nafikiri hata tukifanya kaunti mzima hakuna mtu ako na hiyo pesa.
Residents of Kisii Estate said the house was previously occupied by a pastor.
Mwenyewe alihama hii nyumba na kwa sababu kuu ya kuhama hii nyumba ilikuwa imejengwa kwa barabara. Sasa hao wanaume ni kama walichukua hiyo advantage, wakaanza kuishi kwa hii nyumba. Mwenyewe alihama, haiko karibu sababu hiyo nyumba iko kwa barabara.
Wale wanapangisha manyumba, wao wanachunguza ni akina nani wanapea nyumba. Juu sasa unaona huyu mtu alikuja hapa, kama mwenye alihama hapo pasta ni mtu tulikuwa tunajua kabisa. Vile wamekuja hata hatuwajui, hata hawajamaliza mwezi, kisanga ndio hiyo.
After coordinating with police for 2 weeks, Evanson was on the 26th of October rescued by police officers drawn from the CID, Flying Squad and Special Crime Prevention. A rescue mission that saw all 4 kidnappers arrested, with one of them nursing gunshot wounds at the Thika Level 5 hospital.
Mmoja aliweza kuruka juu ya mahali walikuwa wameweka, walikuwa wamejificha, but we managed kuenda, akapigwa risasi ya mguu, tuko naye, we are guarding him. Mahali ile hospitali tumeweka na tukamalizia ataungana na wale wengine ili aweze kuadhibiwa vizuri kwa mahakama zetu zile tuko nayo hapa.
Tunashukuru Mungu, tunasema Mungu ametenda.
Thika Police Boss Erastus Mudhamia is now urging residents to embrace the Nyumba Kumi initiative, which has helped reduce the rate of crime in the area.
Ila tu kusema unastahili baba.
Michelle Ngele, KTN News.
The Kenyan government has imposed a dusk to dawn curfew in Mandera for 60 days following Tuesday's Al-Shabaab attack that left 12 people dead. And even as relatives continue to identify the victims, police have arrested the caretaker of Bisharo Hotel where the 12 were killed. Police say the caretaker may have worked with the attackers to plan and carry out that particular attack. Here is Linda Ogutu with more.
It's now 2 days after the attack in Mandera that left 12 people dead, and now Interior Cabinet Secretary Joseph Nkaiseri has imposed a dusk to dawn curfew in the county. It is hoped that the 6:30 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. curfew will help to stabilize the security situation. Areas affected by the curfew that takes effect today are Mandera Town, Omar Jilo, Arabia, Fino, Lafay, Kotule, and Elwak. The curfew applies to environs of the said location extending to 20 kilometers from the Kenyan-Somali border. Area leaders have weighed in on the curfew.
The problem of insecurity is here with us, the challenge is here, and any input that can be done that improves the overall security within the county is extremely critical for us. And I stand here as the governor of Mandera County in support of that decision to impose curfew, as the national security team and the county security team are trying to mitigate the problem that is at hand. We are advising the non-locals not to stay in large numbers in one single plot because they are increasing the risk. But they should occupy, in twos, ones, other plots that are available. We have sufficient houses for them to rent.
The curfew may make a difference to the residents in Mandera, but for those who lost their relatives at the latest attack, the identification process at the Chiromo mortuary is the realization of the loss and indeed the permanent scar left by the attack, seemingly too painful to bear. And even as relatives of the victims converge to identify their own and begin the final send-off for them, a court in Mandera allowed officers from the Anti-Terrorism Police Unit to hold for 10 days the caretaker of Bisharo Hotel, where the 12 people were killed. 21-year-old Abdirahman Ali is suspected to have aided the attackers. It is alleged that Ali did not sleep in the lodge on the fateful day, as he usually did, but instead spent the night in a room 15 meters from the lodge, his usual place of work. It is alleged that Ali did not report the attack to any security agency until he was arrested. Linda Ogutu, KTN News.
Stay with us. You are watching KTN Prime. We're taking a break, but when we return, our focus goes to the stubborn taboo. What will it take to end female genital mutilations? Stay with us. We'll be back with that and much more. Welcome back to KTN Prime. We're glad you're watching. Let's now go to a story that we've been focusing on all week long, and this is about the stubborn taboo. And winning the war against female genital mutilation here in Kenya will be impossible without reaching out to the circumcisers who make the cut. In our final installment of the Stubborn Taboo series, we speak to reformed cutters who now campaign against the cut and tell you the story of Eunice Nangoria and the woman who cut her.
For the longest time in West Pokot, there was no shame in playing the role of the cutter.
Natairi wasichana mwaka 10 nawachia Mary na wadada wangu wengine. Siku moja namaliza watoto 10.
Even the cutter was cut too.
Haiko sijui mwaka 2 au mwaka 3. Silienda kapewa nini Kitale. Sukutali.
These women had experienced the serious consequences of the cut. Why would they continue to inflict the same on the girls they had been asked to cut?
Ile mtoto natairi napatia mimi mbuzi ngapi? Mbuzi 2. Ngine ile na iko na furaha kabisa na ukijita mimi kucha kama natairi wasianake 2 au 3 napatia mimi ng'ombe.
When FGM became illegal and penalties were introduced for perpetrators, the practice became a secret affair. By the women's admission, the law itself, even till now, is not strong enough to end FGM on its own. Many cutters and parents who solicit it are never held to account. The livestock paid as dowries diminishing in number, and thus less gifts for the cutter. But what exactly was their turning point?
Sitaki. Na sahi wesi kukunywa pombe ameenda kanisa.
Interventions by ActionAid and the Komesi Women's Network have given a lot of training for women on leadership, reproductive health and trauma counseling. But a greater challenge remains finding alternative sources of livelihood that will take the place of the cutting. Mary Lochongo and Eunice Nangoria are bound by a bond from the past. It's not just the fact that they live in the same village. Mary is the woman who cut Eunice when she was 8 years old. Eunice, now 37, has lived in Mary's shadow since then. Eunice's decision to forgive Mary has not been an immediate result of the just one conversation we witness, but a gradual process that has taken years. She cannot forget what she lost. Seeing Mary will always be a constant reminder. Not so many girls or women are able to find closure and confront the women who cut them. Not many cutters find forgiveness. Eunice's 3-month-old son David is a source of joy for the reformed cutters. Blessing him together is an affirmation that they're still important and are relevant in a society where a new generation is pulling together and pulling apart to fight the practice of FGM. Female genital mutilation in Kenya became officially legal in the year 2011. Close to 5 years later, a spirited campaign has been put up against the practice, especially here in the county of West Pokot. With all that has been done, there's still so much more to do to end FGM completely. Dorcas Wangira, KTN News in the county of West Pokot.
In our big Q tonight, we are asking you, do you think communities that still practice female genital mutilation are doing enough to stop it? Send in your thoughts at KTN News, at KTN Kenya. You can tweet me directly at Sophia Wanuna. I will sample your views towards the end of this live broadcast. And joining me live here on set at the Kapenguri Museum is Susan Otieno. She's the head of fundraising with Action Aid, which has been one of the organizations spearheading the fight against the FGM here in West Pokot. Susan, thank you so much for joining us, and a good evening to you.
Good evening.
So let's begin with just what we're talking about earlier, that this is an intrusive, dangerous. It has led to loss of life and complications in terms of health, dropping out of school for girls, and it is illegal in Kenya. It's the 21st century. Why are we still talking about stopping FGM? Why is it still a problem?
Action Aid has worked with the community in West Pokot for over 5 years. And what we realized that women were still being affected. They were facing the effect of poverty more than any other person. And going deeper, we also realized that it's because of the cultural practice, female genital mutilation, that started way back when they were 12 years, 13 years, 14 years. And this being a practice that is embedded in culture and traditions, we also came to learn that culture and traditions has its roots quite deeply seated in the community. And so that's why you find here in people come up with strategies to fight FGM, and you go back again the following year, it's still happening.
Why haven't you been successful?
The strategies that we had used initially was to work with the girls directly to say no. And then we realized that it is not about the girls alone. It is about the girls, it's about the community, it's about the cultural leaders.
A paradigm shift is required.
Exactly, exactly.
All
and
right.
to do that, we had to categorize the people that we were going to target. And so we partnered with Komesi and targeted the community members, especially the cultural leaders, the men whom people had left behind, just to work with them to change their mindset, to change their attitude towards this retrogressive culture. And so with Komesi, we realized that we have to first start off by rescuing the girls who are at threat.
All right.
And the girls were girls who were going to school. And the moment they went through FGM, it meant their schooling stops and they're ready for marriage.
Right.
Yes.
And this is not even just about the men in society. The women as well are involved, because for them, you know, it's dowry, it's making sure they can come and talk about our girl has gone through this. But what's worrying that even last year there were 2 incidents that were reported of girls who committed suicide because their parents had refused for them to go through FGM, so that even the girls whom you're trying to help believe they should go through this process for fear of stigma and ridicule in society. So really this is a problem that is so entrenched in society. What will it take to bring it to an end?
To bring this to an end, we have to educate the community. We have to educate the girls to know that what has been fixed in their minds about FGM is not the truth. You do not need to go through FGM to get married. You do not need to go through FGM to be considered a woman. You need your body. It's about bodily integrity.
Yeah.
And to do that, then after talking to the girls, we also need to consider engaging with their families. Because the pressure comes from the families, the pressure comes from fellow girls, the pressure comes from the women.
And as Action Aid, you have safe houses. As we bring this to a close, talk to us about what these are supposed to do, and also the role of the political class, because they seem to be double speaking. On one side, saying don't practice FGM, but at the grassroots, they're encouraging the communities to continue.
Yep. To talk about the safe houses, we felt that if the girl decides that she's not going through FGM, the first step that she takes is to run away from home. And after running away from home, she has nowhere to go. And so because she's in school, we feel that having the safe houses within the school setup will enable her to continue with her education. But then linking it to Komesi Women Network, we also felt that this needed to be a strategy that is sustainable. And that is why Komesi will be putting up a resource center.
Okay.
The resource center will help educate the community and educate the girls.
Right.
And Komesi has been trained to work and engage with the political class.
All right.
But now as ActionAid, we are coming in to say that every Kenyan needs to be involved, from the leaders, from you and I, and even the community. And we are giving everyone the opportunity to participate.
All right.
By contributing to ActionAid. We have our M-Pesa number, which is 899-610.
All right.
And you'll be able to support the process that we are engaging with the community.
Thank you so much, Susan, for your time. Susan Otieno with ActionAid with us tonight. And remember, we're engaging with you on Big Q. We're asking you, do you think communities that still practice FGM are doing enough to stop it? Send us your views. We'll sample them towards the end of this live broadcast. Stay with KTN Prime. We'll be back after these few messages.
Tweet of the day in association with LDK Extraordinary Brandy.
Good evening and welcome back to KTN Prime. Let us now talk business, and we begin with Kenya Airways has said that its pre-tax loss has narrowed sharply in the past 6 months through September as it made an operating profit, raising hopes that the struggling carrier may be beginning to turn a corner. Now, Chief Executive Officer Mbuvi Ngunze said that the carrier, which is also partly state-owned, made an operating profit of 0.9 billion shillings for the 6 months ended in September, compared with a loss of 2.2 billion shillings in the same period last year. Kenya Airways has been implementing a recovery plan drawn up by U.S. consultancy firm McKinsey, dubbed Operation Pride, focusing mainly on cutting costs and improving the operational efficiency of the airline. During the 6-month period, revenues dipped slightly to 54 billion shillings, but managed to realize increased passenger traffic with 2.2 million passengers flown. Audit systems are not entirely to blame. That's in the event that a company crumbles financially, as has been the case at Kenya Airways and the Mumias Sugar Company. That is the tough stance that stakeholders in the upcoming financial reporting or FIRE awards are taking, indicating that directors and managers need to take greater responsibility for their action. Now, this is in line with the Fairly New Companies Act, which was enacted last year and which calls for restructuring the roles of company directors in both private and public sectors. It also makes it mandatory for audit reports to reveal all forms of discussions that have taken place between directors and auditors in order to enhance transparency and corporate governance.
Statements. And that is why the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya, ISPAC, the Capital Markets Authority, CMA, the Public Standards Accounting Standards Board, and the Nairobi Securities Exchange value this partnership.
That an avenue like the FIRE award is important so that all public entities can report, can be evaluated through the FIRE awards. This is the second year in which the public sectors are participating. We've gotten feedbacks from the evaluators. We believe as we go along this road, there'll be change in the way and the quality of financial reporting that you'll be seeing from the public sector, not only reporting, but also accountability issues.
Experts in the dairy industry are discussing fresh avenues to increase milk production in the country, which currently stands at 5.2 billion litres per year. Now, this projection is expected to be achieved through the exploration of camel milk in northern parts of Kenya. Some participants in the concluded second National School Milk Conference held in Mombasa agreed that Kenya was losing huge on the country's potential. Here now is KTN's Francis Antoma with more.
The good old days that modern day children may never come to know. Those were the days of the famous Maziwa ya Nyayo program, synonymous with the Daniel Arap Moi administration. the program went under, but discussions around the revival of the program has resurfaced. Experts feel Kenya has not taken full advantage of the huge population of camels in the northern parts of Kenya.
If we can support the counties in the north and provide camel milk, which is processed and packed to the school-going children in those counties, I think that other angle needs also to be looked at.
Camel milk is considered more nutritious and with special health benefits. Kenya Markets Trust is working closely with the counties of the north to exploit this potential. A processing plant is already being constructed. The US government has invested $225 million to support agriculture initiative in Kenya, including dairy farming, and the milk program is on the top focus.
If all the counties bring on to the school milk program, demand can increase over 5% for milk just by the school milk feeding programs. That's amazing. That could be 80,000 new Kenyan jobs as well. So you have happier and healthier, productive children, and you have a driver of economic growth that's important for Kenya.
Mombasa was Kenya's first county to initiate the school milk program, pumping 120 million shillings yearly and covering 30,000 children in 98 schools. The county projects that by 2020, they'll have stretched the number to 50,000. Migori is the only other county that has joined the program.
The constitution was very clear. We're not talking about daycare. We're talking about childcare. And Kenya as a country does not have a childcare policy up until now. And the first county to have a childcare policy is Mombasa County.
Our friends like USAID, Kenya Dairy Board, to come in a big way, especially at the moment when we are looking at long-term sustainability.
Expanding the school milk program in the other 45 counties is expected to increase demand and generally improve the dairy industry. Francis Ontomwa, KTN News, Mombasa.
All right, welcome back to KTN Prime. Let us talk sports now, and we begin with the Kenya women's under-23 volleyball team. Ran out 3-1 in sets of 25-23, 23-25, 25-22, 25-19 to win over Rwanda in the final match of the under-23 African Nations Championship at the Safaricom Indoor Arena. The result saw Kenya finish second in the week-long competition behind Egypt, guaranteeing them a direct ticket to the World Under-23 Championship, which will be held in August next year in Slovenia alongside the Egyptians. Now, earlier, Egypt had beaten Botswana 3-0 in sets of 25-16, 25-10, 25-19 to finish as champions of the five-nation event. Champions Egypt had swept aside all their four opponents in the tournament, dropping only one set during their 3-1 win over Kenya on Monday. The results saw Rwanda finish in third position.
And it's a good feeling. The players have fought it out. It is their prize. I give it to them. They were able to listen to the instructions, especially the fourth set.
For sure, the game was so nice. It was very good. We had the chance to beat Kenya, especially in the first set. We were leading 19-16, but Kenya managed to recover by bringing in a new server, number 8, which destroyed us, and Kenya recovered from that point, and it was very difficult for us to stop at that moment.
The international friendly match pitting Harambee Starlets against Egypt, slated for Friday the 28th of October, has been rescheduled from 7 p.m. Kenyan time to kick off at 2:30 p.m. with the venue being Kasarani Stadium. The move has been necessitated by a request from the visiting team to have the match played earlier in the day in order to allow them ample time to prepare for their departure back to Egypt. The Kenyan Queens of Soccer will be lining up against the Egyptians, who shared spoils of a 1-1 draw with FKF Women Premier League side Thika Queens in a friendly match. Both nations will be using the match as part of the preparation for the 2016 Africa Women Cup of Nations. Starlets were pooled in Group B alongside defending champions Nigeria, Ghana and Mali. medical allocation is not reaching them. Franklin Matara, FGM should be taught in schools from primary school. And then we have another one here from Mwebi J. You tweet, they do not condemn nor report FGM activities. They hide in culture and stigmatization. We'll end it there. Our time is up, but we thank you so much for joining us on behalf of the entire team. Dorcas Wangira, who's been here all week bringing us all those stories around FGM, that stubborn taboo, and we definitely hope more will be done to bring the same to a stop. On behalf of all our teams elsewhere, even in Nairobi, that made this bulletin possible, thank you for joining us. My name is Sophia Wanuna. Have a blessed night and God bless.